Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Sarah, and I'm a part of the team here at Test Innovators. Today's webinar is everything you need to know about the SSAT. This webinar will be recorded, and I will be sending out a copy of the recording to everyone after the webinar. We're also live streaming on Facebook today, so you can also head over to our Facebook page to get a copy of the recording. So throughout the webinar, please feel free to type any questions you might have in the Q&A box. If we have time at the end, I'll answer those questions. But if we don't have time, or if there are any questions I don't get to, I'll be sure to email you a response. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so today we will be covering an overview of the SSAT, in which we'll discuss the test structure, sections, and scoring. We'll also discuss the benefits of preparation. We'll walk you through the steps to prepare for the test. And we'll also discuss test taking tips, both general and section specific. First, let's cover the basics. The SSAT, or the Secondary School Admissions Test, is used by admissions departments during the application process to independent schools. Elementary level students can take the SSAT up to 2 times, and middle and upper level students can take the test up to 3 times on the computer and up to 8 times on paper. This test is administered on both paper and on the computer, except for the elementary level, which is only issued on paper. Next, we'll talk about the test structure. So there are several levels of the SSAT, including elementary level, middle level, and upper level. When you're trying to figure out which level you need to take, keep in mind that the level of the test is dependent on the grade that you are applying to, rather than your current grade. So if you're currently in 8th grade applying to 9th grade, you would take the upper level. Whereas if you're currently in 7th grade applying to 8th grade, you would take the middle level. The elementary level consists of 4 sections: quantitative, verbal, reading, and writing. The middle and upper levels consist of 5 sections: writing, quantitative 1, reading, verbal, and quantitative 2. Next, we'll take a deeper dive into each section of the test. First, there's the writing sample. So the writing sample is the only unscored portion of the SSAT. A copy of it is sent to schools along with the score report. Students will be asked to write an essay in response to one of the given prompts. So as you can see, for the elementary level, you'll have a picture prompt, and it will be about 15 minutes. The middle level, you'll have one creative story starter and 1 personal prompt, and you'll get 25 minutes. The upper level, you'll have 1 personal prompt and 1 general prompt, and you'll get 25 minutes. And then you pick one of those prompts that you're given, one of the 2 that you're given for the middle and upper levels, and write a response based on that. Prompts would be something like, who is one of your favorite characters from the book and why? The elementary level has 1 quantitative section, and the middle and upper levels have 2 quantitative sections. Note that students are not allowed to use a calculator on the SSAT. The reading comprehension section consists of passages and questions based on the information given in the passage. For the elementary level, you have 28 questions and 30 minutes with 7 passages. The middle and upper levels have 40 questions. You're given 40 minutes and you have 8 passages. The verbal reasoning section has 2 types of questions, synonyms and analogies. The first part of the section is made up of synonym questions, and the second part of the section consists of analogy questions. So on the slide, you can see we have an example of the synonym question. For example, deceptive is a synonym of which of the following choices, and you pick the correct answer choice there. And analogies look like this. So reporter is to notepad as, and then you have to select the analogy that has the same relationship as reporter does to notepad. Next, we'll discuss how the SSAT is scored. On the elementary level, students receive 1 point for correct answers and 0 points for incorrect answers or questions left unanswered. On the middle and upper levels, students receive 1 point for correct answers, minus -1/4 point for incorrect answers, and 0 points for questions left unanswered. It's important to note that the SSAT is scored normatively based on grade level, and scores are presented as percentiles. So you may ask, what is a percentile? A percentile is a way of comparing students' scores. For example, if you score in the 80th percentile, it means that you did better than 80% of students in your grade. This is not the same as answering 80% of the questions correctly. So it's a relative measure of how you're doing as compared to the other students at your grade level. Next, we're going to talk about how to prepare for the SSAT. First, let's talk about why it's beneficial to prepare for the test. Preparation allows students to gain familiarity with the test, which helps build confidence and decrease test-taking anxiety. Okay, let's jump to how to prepare for the SSAT. So the first thing you're going to want to do is take a full-length practice test. Make sure that the practice test is accurate, provides normative scoring, and tracks timing information. Taking a practice test, no matter when your official test date is, will give you familiarity with the test style, difficulty, and content so that you know what to expect. Step 2, review the results. The review process is possibly the most important step if you're trying to really improve your score. This is the place where you learn the most. So you're going to want to find trends in subject areas that need work. So you're going to identify the areas that need the most improvement. You're going to go back through the test and review every single question that you answered incorrectly or skipped or marked as something to come back to. You're going to want to read the answer explanation and make sure you know how to do that question if you were to see something similar again. Then you're going to want to learn test-taking strategies to understand how to arrive at the correct answer and how to avoid choosing any of the wrong answer choices. The next step, do targeted practice. So focus on the areas that could use work based on your practice test results. So you will have identified areas that need improvement, focus on those areas, and practice those specific question types until you feel confident with those skills. Once you've done that, go back and repeat. So you're going to repeat steps 1 to 3 until test day. One recommended study schedule is to take a practice test once a week or every other week, depending on how close your test date is, and then complete the recommended practice exercises in between. So it's often better to do frequent, shorter practice sessions rather than a few long sessions. And it's really good to give yourself enough time to prepare before the test. So start preparing early. Next, we're going to go over some general test taking tips. First strategy we're going to talk about is the elimination strategy. So the questions are multiple choice on the SSAT. So you know the correct answer is there somewhere. So don't forget to use the answer choices to help you find the correct one. If you don't know the answer, start eliminating answer choices that you know aren't right. So you're going to start by crossing off the choices that you know are wrong. Then with the remaining choices, make an educated guess. Eliminating answer choices will increase your chance of choosing that correct answer. Although the middle and upper levels have a wrong answer penalty, statistically, you're going to receive the same number of points on average if you guess randomly on every question as if you left every question blank. I will send this out along with the recording afterwards, but our SSAT prep guide explains this in detail. So basically, you should make an educated guess if you don't know the correct answer. And remember that eliminating answer choices will increase your odds of choosing the correct answer. So in short, don't be afraid to guess and try to make as educated a guess as possible. Another big point is time management. Using your time effectively is critical. Remember that every single correct answer is worth the same number of points. Your goal is to answer as many questions correctly as possible. You don't want to waste your valuable time on hard questions when you could instead answer 3 easy questions correctly in the same amount of time. The hard questions are worth 1 point and the easy questions are worth 1 point. So answer the easy questions first. So here's a good strategy for time management. Your first step is to group questions by difficulty, easy and hard. Every time you read a question, ask yourself, do I know how to do this? If your answer is yes, absolutely, do the question. If the answer is maybe, or I'm not really sure about this, circle it in your test booklet to come back to later. If you're taking on the test on paper, you're going to want to make sure you just bubble in something on the answer choice, or just bubble in an answer as a guess on the bubble sheet so that your bubbling doesn't get off track. So if you're skipping question 5, just mark question 5 in your test booklet. You have to go back to it and then put answer choice, a random answer choice in there as a placeholder so that you don't accidentally bubble the wrong questions below that. You're going to do this for every section of the test. So after you've answered all the easy questions and gone through the whole section, go back and do the hard questions and work on those last. So the idea is get all the easy points first, then go back and do the hard points. Remember, the easy questions and the hard questions are worth the same amount. Each question is worth 1 point. It's also very important to keep track of time during the test. So it's important to pace yourself so that you have time to answer each question. So, get the feel of how it feels to take a test full length, and then get a feel for how much time you have to answer each question. Knowing how much time you have per question in each section will help you gauge if you need to pick up the pace or if you can slow down a bit. So if you feel like you're behind, you'll know you have to pick up the pace and move a little more quickly. If you're making it through the section really quickly, you can slow down a bit, relax, and make sure you're double and triple checking your work. Now we're going to go over some tips for each section of the SSAT. Let's start with the writing sample section. So the writing section of the SSAT is not scored, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't prepare. So you're going to want to choose a topic that showcases something you care about and you're familiar with. Remember, to write in a way that shows you in a positive light. This is your chance to show the school who you are outside of school. With a limited time to write, managing your time effectively is incredibly important. Start by spending the first 2 to 5 minutes outlining your work. After you have a plan, go ahead and get writing. This is where you'll spend the bulk of your time. You'll need to watch the clock, save yourself 2 to 5 minutes at the end to review so that you can revise. Your essay should have a clear, focused topic that directly answers the given question. It should be structured much like the essays you've written in school, with an introduction, 2 or 3 body paragraphs, and a conclusion. Your writing should include examples and specific details that makes your writing come alive and relates back to your main point. Next, we'll go over some helpful tips for the 2 quantitative sections. There are several helpful tips and strategies for math questions. First, be sure to read the question carefully and underline the important information. This includes words and numbers, indicating the quantities, relationships, and calculations that you'll need to answer the question. And you'll also want to pay close attention to the units to make sure you're working in the correct units. After you solve the problem, check to make sure you've answered the given question. Look back at what the question is asking you to find and make sure it matches your answer. So after you solve a question, double check, is it asking you to solve for x or x plus 4, for example. Also, don't forget to write down your work on scratch paper. You don't want to have to do all these calculations in your head. That is a recipe for making mistakes. So in terms of quantitative strategies, estimation is a powerful tool for eliminating wrong answer choices. So for every question, before beginning to solve, ballpark what you think the right answer should be. And then you'll be able to often eliminate some of the answer choices that are just way off. Like if you think the answer is 10 and it's 10 million, then there's an order of magnitude difference between the different answer choices. For some questions, the jumping off point is the answers, so it's helpful to work backwards. For questions with an unknown quantity, you can often substitute the answer choices for the unknown quantity to see which is correct. And the answer choices are in order, so always start with the middle answer choice to minimize the number of answers you have to substitute. So you know if you put in an answer choice, it's not right, but you can tell maybe you need to put in a smaller or larger number. You can adjust from there. Sometimes the math questions may seem very challenging to solve abstractly. In cases like these, it can be helpful to use actual numbers to determine the answer. So pick a value to substitute. Drawing pictures is also a very powerful strategy for word problems and for questions with shapes and graphs. So be sure to make use of your scratch paper and draw pictures. Okay, now let's go over some strategies for the reading comprehension. The most important rule of reading comprehension is that the passage will always provide all of the information needed to answer the question. If any part of the answer choice does not match the information given in the passage, it is incorrect. Whenever possible, after you read a question, come up with an answer before you look at the answer choices. This will help you eliminate wrong answer choices and find the best answer. In general, avoid answer choices that are too extreme. If you see answer choices with words like only, always, never, or other extreme words, these are unlikely to be the correct answer. You should only choose them if you're absolutely sure that this sentiment is in the passage as well. Additionally, answer choices that are too specific or too general are usually not the correct answer. So something's too specific or too broad, generally not going to be the correct answer on the reading section. Good time management is also critical to success on the reading comprehension. The passages are quite long. So It's best to skim and underline important information such as repeated words, the first and last sentences of each paragraph. But with all that in mind, you don't want to rush because it may cause you to overlook important information. Next, we're going to discuss strategies for the verbal section. Studying vocabulary is an important part of preparing for the verbal reasoning section. Studying for just 15 minutes each day can help you improve. There are several ways to study, including flashcards, writing sentences that contain the vocabulary words, drawing pictures depicting the word, using vocabulary words in everyday conversation. Also be sure to study roots, prefixes, and suffixes, which can be very helpful when encountering unfamiliar words. So use whatever of these strategies works best for you, but they're all excellent ways to learn vocabulary. As I mentioned earlier, the first part of the verbal section includes synonym questions. One effective strategy for approaching the synonym questions is to cover up the answer choices so that you come up with your own answer first. Then find the correct answer choice that's closest to the one you came up with. And this will prevent you from getting distracted by wrong answer choices. For the analogies questions, start by finding the relationship between the first pair of words. It can be helpful to make up a sentence for the first pair of words. Then apply that relationship to the second pair of words and put these words in your sentence. Finally, select the answer choice for which relationship matches. So for the analogy questions, you want to pay attention to the order. So keep in mind that if you have happy is to smile as frown is to sad, that's not the same thing as happy is to smile as sad is to frown. The first one would be wrong, the second one would be right. Also, the parts of speech should match so that verb is to noun as verb is to noun. So make sure the parts of speech match. Okay. If you have any questions, feel free to use the Q&A section. And if we have just about a minute, but if you have questions that I don't get to, I'll be sure to follow up in email. And of course, you are always welcome to email us your questions at support@testinnovators.com or give us a call at 1-800-280-1857. You can visit us at SSATpracticetest.com. Feel free to contact us at either of these places with any questions. We are here 7 days a week. I recommend checking out our free SSAT prep guide. It has everything you need to know about the test, as well as tips and strategies for each section. So I'll send out a link to our SSAT guide in the email with the webinar recording. And as a thank you for joining us for this webinar, please feel free to use the coupon code SSAT Need to Know for $15 off our valedictorian package for the middle and upper levels. That's all for now, and thank you so much for joining us today.